Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're going to tackle something super useful, how to compare things in English. You know, saying one thing is bigger or faster or more interesting than another. By the end of this, you'll be a pro. So let's jump right in.
Okay, so let's just think about this for a second. How do we actually talk about all the differences we see around us? How do you say that one thing is big, but another thing is, well, even bigger? Let's figure it out together.
Check this out. The Nile is longer than the Amazon. It's a pretty simple sentence, right? But just by adding those two little letters to the word long, we can clearly show a difference. And that little trick is the main idea we're going to explore today.
All right, section 1, comparing two things. First up, we're going to keep it nice and simple. We'll start by looking at how you compare just two things with each other.
So, the fancy grammar word for this is comparatives. I know, it sounds a bit technical, but don't worry. The idea behind it is super easy. Comparatives are for comparing two things. That's it. That's all you need to remember.
So, how does it all work? Well, for lots of short describing words or adjectives, we just add a kind of magic ending, er. So, tall becomes taller, small becomes smaller, and yep, long becomes longer. See? Simple.
Let's look at a couple of examples. The Nile is longer than the Amazon. Or how about this one? This building is taller than my house. Did you notice that little word, than? It's really important. It's the word we use to connect the two things we're comparing. But hang on a minute. What about longer words? Words like beautiful or spectacular. We can't really say beautifuler. That just sounds a bit weird, right? For these longer words, we have a different magic word we use instead, more.
For example, you would say, the Pacific Ocean is more beautiful than the Atlantic. See? We just put the word more right before the adjective. So the key takeaway here is pretty simple. For short words, add er, and for the long words, use more.
Great, you've totally got how to compare two things. But what if you want to compare, say, three things, or four, or a whole group of things to find out which one is number one? Let's see how that works. For this, we use something called superlatives. Yeah, it's another one of those big words, but again, the idea is really simple. Superlatives help us find the one thing that's at the very top, the biggest, the tallest, the absolute number one in a group of three or more. And just like we did before, there's a special ending for short words. This time it's est, so high becomes highest, and tall becomes tallest. This ending tells everyone that something is at the very top of its group. Let's look at these examples. Mount Everest is the highest mountain. The Burj Khalifa is the tallest building. Did you notice something else? We always use the word the before superlative. It's always the highest, the tallest. And I bet you've already guessed it. For those longer words, we have another special phrase. Instead of more, we use the most. This also tells us that something is number one for that quality. For example, you could say, the Grand Canyon is the most spectacular canyon. We use the most right before our long word, spectacular, to show that it's at the very top of the list. Now, English loves to have a few exceptions to the rules. So there are some very common words that don't follow the or est pattern at all. Let's take a quick look at the most important ones. The two big special words you really have to know are good and bad. We don't say gooder or baddest. Nope, never. Instead, good becomes better and then the best. Bad becomes worse and then the worst. These are so important to remember because, well, we use them all the time. Let's see them in some sentences. This is the best lookout point. That's our superlative, finding number one. Or for a comparative, the pollution here is worse than in the countryside. See how they fit right into the sentence patterns we already learned? Okay, you've got this. You know the rules for comparatives, for superlatives, and even for those special words. So now let's put it all together and see how to use these in a few different types of sentences. We'll quickly look at three types: a positive statement, which is just a simple fact, a negative statement for saying something is not true, and finally, how to ask a question. First, a positive sentence. This is just a simple statement of fact. The Pacific Ocean is deeper than the Atlantic Ocean. It's direct, it's clear, and it just uses that rule we learned.
Next up, a negative sentence. So, what if a comparison isn't true? Well, you just add the word not. The Empire State Building is not taller than the Tower Bridge. It really is that easy to say something isn't so.
And finally, how do we ask a question? We just change the word order a little bit, usually starting with is or are. Is the Amazon longer than the Nile? And just like that, you can ask questions to find out more about the world around you.
And that is everything. You now have all the tools you need to make comparisons in English. You are totally ready to talk about differences and say things are bigger, better, or even the best. So, what are you going to use this for first?